According to legend, Davy Crockett once battled a 12-foot catfish, split a bullet with an axe, dodged lightning bolts, made a bear surrender by smiling at it. Look, even the jackalope doesn't believe any of that, and he's best friends with Bigfoot. So who was the historical Davy Crockett? You're in luck. We've got the real king of the wild frontier on this episode of Bigfoot's Great American History Show. David Crockett was born in 1786 in present-day Tennessee, by a river, not on a mountaintop as the Ballad of Davy Crockett later claimed. Even so, his frontier cred was very real. The fifth of 9 children born to a poor family, David, that was what he called himself, learned at an early age to hunt game for his family's tavern. Accordingly, he became a skilled marksman, even if he was not only 3 when he first killed him a bar. At 12, his father hired him out to herd cattle, hundreds of miles from home. A year later, he started school and promptly got into a fight with a bully, whereupon he began playing hooky. When his father learned about it, 13-year-old David ran away from home to avoid a whipping. He would live on his own for 2.5 years, working cattle drives, farm jobs, and even apprenticing as a hat maker. Upon his return home at age 16, he promptly went back to work to pay off his family's debts. At 18, young David Crockett fell in love with Margaret Elder. When she decided to marry someone else, Crockett licked his wounds and moved on to marry Finley, called Polly, whom he married in August of 1806. By the time the Creek War broke out during the War of 1812, the young Crockett family had increased by 2 boys and a girl and moved to western Tennessee. Against Polly's wishes, Crockett joined the now famous Tennessee Volunteers, led by Major General of the Militia Andrew Jackson. Serving with a company of mounted riflemen, Crockett took part in one-sided U.S. victories against Red Stick Creeks at Tallahatchie and Talladega, though he now found that he enjoyed hunting game a good deal more than he enjoyed warfare. Sadly, in 1815, just 2 months after he returned home from his second enlistment, Polly died of an unknown illness. Wanting a mother for his children, Crockett promptly married war widow Elizabeth Patton, and so added 2 stepchildren and eventually 3 biological children to his growing family. Meanwhile, Crockett earned a reputation among his peers as a gifted speaker and yarn spinner, without much formal education, but with a healthy amount of common sense. In 1817, he packed up and moved west yet again, this time to Shoal Creek, where he was promptly named a town commissioner and a justice of the peace. The next year, he was elected a regimental colonel in the state militia. Henceforth, and for the rest of his life, he would be known as Colonel David Crockett. 3 years later, he won an election for a seat in the Tennessee General Assembly by a 2-to-1 margin. During his first term, an opposing assemblyman dismissively referred to him as the gentleman from the cane, in reference to the backwoods canebrake country where Crockett lived. In response, Crockett pinned a frilly ruffle, like the one worn by the representative who had insulted him, directly onto his coarse country shirt, much to the amusement of the rest of the assembly. So it was that Crockett came to embrace the nickname the gentleman from the cane. Alas, Crockett's business ventures left something to be desired. In September of 1821, a flood washed away his gunpowder factory and gristmill, which rendered his corn distillery useless. Upon receiving property from his father-in-law, he cleared up as much of his debt as possible and moved to northwest Tennessee, where he won a second term in the assembly. In 1825, he set his sights on the House of Representatives. After failing in his first effort by a mere 267 votes, he went into business making barrel staves, only to lose all 30,000 of his staves when his flatboats crashed into a fallen tree on the Mississippi River. Following the accident, which thankfully his entire crew survived, he hailed a boat to Memphis, where he met storekeeper and soon-to-be mayor Marcus Brutus Winchester. Winchester gave Crockett a pair of clean trousers from his store and encouragement to make a second run for Congress. In 1827, Crockett won a 3-man race for a seat in the House by a significant margin. As a congressman, Crockett proposed a bill defending the rights of squatters who had settled and improved public lands. This put him at odds with the new president, one Andrew Jackson, who, though in many ways a populist, generally opposed federal aid programs. Crockett would not live to see his bill become law, though his son, John Wesley Crockett, would help pass a similar land bill in 1841. In 1830, the elder Crockett was the only congressman from Tennessee to vote against President Jackson's Indian Removal Act. Sadly, the bill passed without Crockett's support and led to the forced relocation of over 60,000 Cherokee, Creek, Seminole, Chickasaw, and Choctaw people from the southeastern United States to present-day Oklahoma. In the years that followed, an estimated 15,000 members of the 5 tribes would die from exposure, disease, and starvation during forced relocations. Having made an enemy of the popular president, Crockett lost his next bid for re-election. "I found the storm had raised against me, sure enough," he wrote. Upon returning to Tennessee, Crockett was forced to sell his property to cover debts, whereupon Elizabeth took the children and moved back in with her family. David, it should be said, had long prioritized politics and hunting over his duties as a husband and father. Still, his fame was greater than ever. Exaggerated stories about the uneducated bear hunter in Congress, many of which had been planted by political opponents, captured the public imagination. In 1831, James Kirk Paulding wrote a play named The Lion of the West, featuring Colonel Nimrod Wildfire, a character inspired by Crockett, who was by then becoming popularly known as Davy. When Crockett attended a performance of Paulding's play in Washington, the audience greeted him with cheers. After the curtain rose, the actor playing Wildfire, decked in buckskin pants and a wildcat skin hat, bowed to Crockett. The Lion of the West would be the most performed play in America until a stage version of Uncle Tom's Cabin premiered in 1852. Despite the best efforts of the Jacksonian Democrats, Crockett was re-elected to Congress in 1833. Once again, he opposed the president, this time as part of the so-called Bank War, in which Andrew Jackson's Secretary of the Treasury, Roger B. Taney, removed federal deposits from the Second Bank of the United States on questionable legal grounds. "If Jackson is sustained in this act," Crockett said, "we say that the will of one man shall be the law of the land." Anti-Jacksonians, like Crockett, would shortly coalesce into the Whig Party, named after the British Whigs who historically defended Parliament against abuse of power by the king, or, in this case, King Andrew I. While Crockett himself was said to have generally dressed like a gentleman and not a backwoodsman, he was more than happy to play up his frontier cred for votes. His 1834 autobiography, written with the help of Representative Thomas Chilton of Kentucky, made, in Crockett's own words, no literary pretensions. Instead, it was full of backwoods idioms and vivid descriptions of frontier life, including a claim that Crockett once killed 47 bears in a single month. The book became a bestseller and featured his now famous motto on the title page, "Be always sure you're right, then go ahead." During a book tour in the East, Crockett participated in a shooting match. True to form, he declined a visit to Harvard for fear that they might try to give him an honorary degree. Despite talk of his running for president, Crockett narrowly lost his bid for re-election to the House in 1835. He took the loss in stride, and by that I mean that he said, "You may all go to hell, and I will go to Texas." In November of 1835, Crockett left the United States to explore Texas, where he hoped to settle, and which was then engaged in a war of rebellion against Mexico. By early 1836, he had crossed the Red River and reached Nacogdoches, where he swore an oath of allegiance to the Provisional Texas government. By early February, he had reached San Antonio, recently captured by rebels. Here, news arrived that Mexican General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna was but 2 weeks away and intent on retaking the town. The rebels, including Crockett, set to work organizing defenses behind the walls of an old Spanish mission known as the Alamo. On February 23rd, Santa Anna arrived with a force of 1,500 men, some 10 times the size of the force defending the Alamo. For nearly 2 weeks, the Mexican force laid siege to the one-time mission, a red flag raised to signal no quarter, while the rebels awaited reinforcements which for the most part did not come. On the morning of March 6, 1836, Santa Anna's army attacked. Their first 2 attempts to scale the walls were sent back, but the third broke through. The defenders were routed, even as Santa Anna's force suffered heavy casualties of its own. No one knows for sure how David Crockett died. Some claimed he died in battle, swinging a rifle over his head or making a run outside the walls. In his memoir, Mexican officer José Enrique de la Peña recalled that Crockett was among 7 prisoners taken against Santa Anna's wishes, whom the general ordered executed. According to de la Peña, Crockett and the others died, quote, without humiliating themselves before their torturers. Whatever the case, a month later, a retreating Texian force led by Sam Houston engaged and defeated Santa Anna's army at the Battle of San Jacinto, famously shouting, "Remember the Alamo," as they charged. Texas subsequently became an independent republic until it joined the United States in 1845 on the eve of the Mexican-American War. As a congressman, David Crockett was unsuccessful in preventing the relocation of Native Americans or the shutdown of the Second Bank of the United States. He didn't live to see the passage of the land bill that was so dear to his heart. And alas, I'm afraid I must confirm that he did not, in fact, patch up the crack in the Liberty Bell. But his legacy, it turned out, would extend far beyond the realm of politics. In 1954, Walt Disney released the first of 5 television episodes on the life of the famous frontiersman, each starring Fess Parker in the titular role. The miniseries was an enormous hit, drawing an estimated 40 million viewers at its peak. Within a year, hundreds of millions of dollars of merchandise had been sold, including coonskin caps, bubblegum trading cards, and even underwear. Today, Davy Crockett serves as a symbol of the self-made man standing up to political power, both as a historical figure and as a mythical folk hero. Meanwhile, the circumstances of Crockett's death have become the subject of much debate. Did he die in battle? Was he executed? Or was he enslaved in a silver mine, as one man later claimed? Does it even matter? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. While other Disney-fied American legends like Pecos Bill and Paul Bunyan are entirely fictional, Johnny Appleseed, like Davy Crockett, was in fact a flesh and blood human being. If you're interested in learning more about John Chapman's legendary apple tree business and unusual faith, check out this video. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Until next time, this is Bigfoot saying so long and save me a seat at your next campfire.